Hi 6th graders, I hope you've been doing well. Today we're going to continue Unit 4, all about adding and subtracting fractions. Our learning target for today is I can add and subtract using fractions with unlike denominators. Alright, so let's get started. Our first two problems, we are going to use fraction strips to add and subtract. So let's look at number 1. We are adding 1/2 plus 1/5. So we have a whole bunch of fraction strips down here that will help us figure out what our total is when we add them. So our first one is 1/2. Well, if you notice, this right here is representing one whole one. Half of it represents 1/2. So now if we notice underneath our line where we have our answer, 1/2 really represents 5 tenths. Okay, so go ahead and color in 5 of those. I'm going to erase my box and recolor it in. Alright, so we just colored in 1/2 on our tenths thing in our picture. Okay, now our next problem is 1/5. Okay, now if you notice our second one, we have fifths right here. This whole thing represents a whole, but one of them represents 1/5. And if we notice, down here, two of them are the exact same size as 1/5. Alright, so change your colors of your highlighter. Now we're coloring in 2 more because we're adding 1/5 to it. Now that we have 1/2 and 1/5 colored in, now we need to figure out our answer. So we know it's divided into 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So our denominator is 10. Our numerator is 7 because we have 7 colored in our bottom picture. Alright, in 7/10 we cannot simplify, so we are all done. Now going over to number 2, this time we're subtracting. Alright, we're taking 7/8 minus 3/4. Alright, so let's look at our first shape here, fraction strip. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's split into eighths. Okay, but we only want 7 of those colored in. So that is showing 7/8. Okay, now down in our answer, let's color in our 7/8. It's the exact same amount that we have shaded in the first one. And now this time we're subtracting 3/4. Okay, so let's look at our second fraction bar, or fraction line. It's divided into fourths, but we only want 3 of them colored in. So we're only talking about those 3. Okay, we need to subtract this amount from our answer. So if you notice, it lines up so perfectly. We're subtracting all of this from our 7/8. So when we subtract it, what are we left with then? Right, we only have one piece left, so we're left with 1/8 because our bottom fraction strip is split into eighths. And that's our answer. Alright, so now let's look at how to do it without using fraction strips. So go ahead and fill out your notes. Adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. Your first step, we need to rename the fractions using the least common denominator. So this is like when we order and compare fractions. We can't do it unless we have common denominators. Okay, the next step is to add and subtract, just like we did in the lesson in 4.1. We just add our numerators and keep our denominators the same. And then lastly, always simplify if we can. Alright, let's get started. If you haven't filled out the box, make sure you do. You can pause the video and we will get started. So we have 4 problems for today. We need to add or subtract and then write our answer in simplest form. So our first one, we have 7/9 minus 1/3. Well, before we can subtract those, I noticed I have a 9 and a 3. I do not have common denominators. So, if you remember, to find common denominators, we find our least common multiple, which we do by counting. So we go 9, 18, 27. Now let's count by threes. 3, 6, 9, 12. Which one's the smallest one that they both share? Right, they both share 9. You might have known that without even needing to list your multiples. And that's awesome. So our common denominator is going to be 9. I like writing that in the corner so that I don't forget. Alright, so looking at our fractions, 7/9 is already there. We don't need to simplify that one anymore. But we do need to get equivalent fractions for 1/3. We need to change that to have a denominator of 9. Alright, so if you remember, to find equivalent fractions, we need to multiply or divide. In this case, we're multiplying. 3 times what gets us to 3? 3 times what gets us to 9? Right, 3. What we do to the bottom, we also have to do to the top. 1 times 3 gives us 3. Alright, so now we are going to subtract these. So I'm going to rewrite my problem. 7/9 minus 1/3, we changed to 3/9. And now we can subtract, since our denominators are the same. That means our denominator will still be 9. And then we subtract our numerators. 7 minus 3 gives us 4. And we can't simplify that, so we are all done. Moving on to number 2, we have 1/2 plus 7/8. You notice we have a 2 and an 8 for our denominator. They are not the same. So we need to count by 2's and 8's to figure out what our denominator is going to be. Starting with 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Starting with 8, 8, 16, 24. What's the smallest one that they both share? Right, it's 8. And again, you might have known that without having to count it out. Awesome. If you didn't, go ahead and just start counting by 2's and start counting by 8's and see which one they both share. Alright, so we need to change 1/2 to have a denominator of 8. So we think 2 times what gives us 8? Well, 2 times 4 gives us 8. And we also need to take 1 times 4, which is 4. Alright, let's rewrite our problem. We're really taking 4/8 plus 7/8. Alright, since our denominators are the same, our denominator is going to stay in 8. Now add your numerators. 4 plus 7 gives us 11. Now we want to simplify 11 over 8. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't really like improper fractions. It's hard to figure out what that number even looks like. So let's change this to a mixed number. I know that 8 fits inside 11 only one time. Our denominator is going to stay in 8. Now we have to take 11 minus 8. Well, 11 minus 8 gives us 3, because we had 3 left over. If that trick did not make sense to you, then you would want to divide 8 divided by 11. How many times does 8 fit inside 11? 1 time. Subtract and we get 3. Our 1 is our whole number, 3 is our numerator, and our 8 stays our denominator. Awesome, so 1 3/8 is our answer. Moving on to number 3. We have 4/7 minus 1/3. Alright, well if you notice, we have 7 and 3, and those are not the same denominators. So we need to count by 7 and by 3 to figure out what our denominator is going to be. Starting with 7. 7, 14, 21, 28. We'll stop there. Alright, 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. Do they already have one in common? Yep, they have 21. So off to the side, I'm going to write 21. That's our denominator. Okay, once we have our denominator, I like to just erase this. That way I have a lot of room to work. Alright, so we need to change both of the fractions to have a denominator of 21. Alright, starting with 4/7. 7 times 3 gives us 21. We need to take 4 times 3, which gives us 12. And then down at the bottom, 3 times 7 gives us 21. 1 times 7 gives us 7. So now let's rewrite our problem. We're really taking 12 over 21 minus 7 over 21. Alright, and our denominators are the same, so they're going to stay 21 in our answer. 12 minus 7 gives us 5. 5 over 21, we cannot simplify, so we're done. Alright, and our last one, I'd like you to try it on your own, and if you're stuck, come back and check your answer. This time we're taking 4/5 plus 1/6. If you notice, our denominators are not the same, so we need to count by 5s and by 6s. Starting with 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. I'm out of room, we'll stop there. Now let's do 6. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. Do they share one already? Yes, they both have 30. I'm going to erase all this work. If you still need to write it, make sure you pause the video. So we need to change both of these fractions to have a denominator of 30. I like to set it up first so I remember what I need to do, and then find my equivalent fractions. Well, 5 times 6 gives us 30. We need to take 4 times 6, which is 24. Alright, in our second fraction, 6 times 5 gives us 30. We need to do 1 times 5, which is 5. Alright, now let's rewrite our problem. We're really taking 24 over 30 plus 5 over 30. Now both of our denominators are 30, so our answer is going to have a denominator of 30. And then we take 24 plus 5, which gives us 29. And we cannot simplify 29 over 30, so that is our answer. Alright, so we just learned how to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. Okay, if that did not make sense, please reach out to me. Otherwise, you can work on the assignment for today.